The night air was cold, but not as cold as the icy stares the Whitmore family cast toward Alana Monroe. She stood at the head of the luxurious dinner table, trembling, not from the chill, but from the weight of everything pressing on her chest. "What exactly are you thinking, Zach?" came the sharp question from Mrs. Evelyn Whitmore, Zach's mother. "You want to marry someone like her? A housekeeper?" Alana bowed her head, doing everything she could to hold back her tears. At her side, Zach gripped her hand tightly, silently telling her he wasn't going to let go. "I love her," Zach said, steady and defiant. "Status doesn't matter. What matters is how she makes me happy." His mother scoffed. "And do you know what really matters, Zach?" "Our name, our reputation," Mr. Richard Whitmore, Zach's father, added with a voice just as stern. "You can't throw all of that away for a woman with no name, no standing, and nothing to offer." Alana's tears finally escaped. She had always known the Whitmore family didn't like her, but hearing it spoken aloud, so raw and cruel, and right in front of Zach, cut deep. "If you truly love her, Zach," Evelyn said coldly, "then leave this house, or stay here and end whatever relationship you have with that girl." Zach swallowed hard. He knew he loved Alana, but was he truly ready to give up the life he had? His family's wealth, his status, the comfort of being a respected Whitmore. 1 minute, 2, 3. Then slowly, he let go of Alana's hand. Her world collapsed. It had only been a second since he released her, but it felt like she had waited forever to hear what he'd say next. "I'm sorry, Alana," Zach whispered, his voice soft but final. Alana couldn't speak. No words would come. She didn't have the strength. She turned and walked away in silence. With each step, she carried the weight of rejection, humiliation, and heartbreak. But somewhere beneath all that pain, she planted something in her heart, a seed of resolve. She wouldn't stay like this forever. One day she would rise, not for them, but for herself. And on that day, no one would ever step on Alana Monroe again. Alana thought that was the end. That night, the sky had turned pitch black as she stood alone at the edge of the expansive Whitmore estate garden. The chilly wind whispered of a storm on the horizon, not just in the sky, but in her life. Moments later, a woman approached her, elegant, aged, yet radiating authority. It was Evelyn Whitmore. Alana's hands trembled as she heard the familiar chill in the matriarch's voice. She knew this wouldn't be a pleasant conversation, but there was no escaping it. "Alana Monroe," Evelyn said with a cold edge, "you do understand you'll never have a place in my son's life." Alana forced herself to breathe, blinking back the tears again. "I love Zach, ma'am." Evelyn smirked bitterly, stepping closer and scanning Alana from head to toe. "Love?" she scoffed. "That's not enough, dear. You're just a lowly housekeeper. No money, no name. A woman who will never be enough for my son." Alana wanted to speak, to defend herself, but her throat felt dry. Everything the woman said was true. She wasn't wealthy, and she didn't belong in their world. But wasn't love supposed to rise above class? "I'm begging you," Alana whispered, trying to suppress the ache in her chest. "I love Zach, and I believe he loves me too." Evelyn shook her head and stepped even closer. "You're just a foolish girl chasing a dream, and as long as I control this family name, you'll never get my son. I won't let you destroy his future." For a long moment, Alana stared into Evelyn's eyes, and then, with her voice low but firm, she replied, "No matter what you do, Mrs. Whitmore, I can't teach my heart to stop loving Zach." The older woman sneered, filled with contempt. "Then prepare yourself for a battle you will never win, because I'll make sure you disappear from his life." With that, Evelyn turned and walked away, leaving Alana shattered, wounded, and alone in the freezing night. On a quiet night, under the dim glow of a street lamp outside the Grand Whitmore estate, Alana stood still, her eyes swollen from crying. She was holding back another sob, the wind brushing her skin, but she barely felt the cold anymore. Across from her stood Zach, hands in his pockets, staring off into the distance, almost as if he couldn't bring himself to look her in the eye. "Zach, please don't do this to me," Alana pleaded through broken sobs, clutching his arm. "I know you still feel something. You can't just leave me like this." His eyes were cold as he gently peeled her hand away from him. "Alana, it's over. There's nothing left for us. We're not meant to be." She stepped back, stunned by the sharpness of his words. "Is it because of my status? Because I'm just a housekeeper in your family's home?" Her voice trembled, and the tears flowed freely down her cheeks. Zach didn't answer right away. He looked down, then met her gaze again. "I won't pretend, Alana. Yes, that's part of it." Alana felt her entire world shatter. The man she had loved so deeply, the man she had dreamed of spending her life with, he was pushing her away because she wasn't rich enough. "Zach, was I never enough? Did you ever love me at all? Was everything just a lie?" He took a breath. "I'm not saying I never loved you, but sometimes I have to choose what's best for me, and that's not you." Alana took a step toward him, desperate, searching for even the smallest shred of love left. "But I love you, Zach. I love you so much. No matter how many times you hurt me, I can't bring myself to leave you." "You don't understand," he said, shaking his head. "I can't fight for us. I can't risk regretting it later. I don't want to hurt you, but I also can't love you the way you want me to." Her tears had dried, but she was weak, so weak she sank down onto the cold pavement, arms wrapped around herself, shivering from the pain more than the cold. "How can you say that to me?" she whispered. "I thought you were different. I thought you loved me the way I loved you." Zach closed his eyes, as if he wished he could erase everything. "You mean a lot to me, Alana. But love's not enough if we can't face reality. Goodbye." He turned around and walked away. He never looked back, even as her sobs filled the air like knives cutting into the night. Alana stayed where she was, staring into nothingness, unable to accept that the man she loved more than anything had just walked away, because she wasn't enough. "Why?" she whispered into the air. "Why am I never enough?" No one answered. Only the cold breeze and her falling tears kept her company as her heart broke beyond repair. The night was silent. Inside her tiny apartment, only the faint sound of Alana's soft sobs could be heard. She stood in front of a cracked old mirror, staring at her swollen eyes and trembling lips. "Is this all I'll ever be?" she whispered to herself, voice shaking. "Will I always be the pitiful one?" Slowly, she touched her tear-streaked cheek, trying to convince herself that there was a reason for all this pain. "They hate me because I'm just a housekeeper," she choked out, before collapsing to the floor. She wrapped her arms around her knees, letting the tears fall freely. How many years had she believed that her love with Zach was enough? How many times had she hoped she could change how his family saw her? But in the end, she had still been cast aside. "I won't let it end here," she whispered through gritted teeth, wiping her tears. She stood up, facing the mirror again, eyes burning with new resolve. "Alana Monroe, show them who you really are," she said to her reflection. There was fire in her eyes now. "You don't need to be born rich to succeed. You're going to prove to yourself that you can rise, even without them." And that was the beginning. Despite the pain, she worked harder than ever. She entered the world of business, studied while working, endured every insult and every humiliation. She became a slave to her own dreams, but never gave up, not even when she stumbled again and again. And now, 5 years after that night, She stood before the mirror once more, but she was nothing like the Alana Monroe who had once cried herself to sleep. She was now the CEO of Monroe Empire, one of the biggest companies in the country. Once just a humble housekeeper, she had become a woman, admired, respected, and even feared. "You look deep in thought," said a familiar voice from behind her. Alana smiled faintly and turned around. "Lucas, I thought you weren't coming." Lucas Ferris, her business partner and longtime friend, stood tall and sharp in a crisp suit. He carried himself like a man who never flinched at adversity. "I couldn't miss this," he replied, adjusting the cufflinks on his sleeves, "especially when we're about to sign an important deal. And you wanted to see how I'm handling the next chapter of Monroe Empire," she teased lightly. Lucas chuckled and shook his head. "You know you've got this. You're not the same Alana who used to shrink under pressure." "I know," she said, her eyes calm. "I've changed." He gave her a sidelong glance and a small smile. "Still, it helps to have someone with you when you're building an empire." She turned to look at him, serious now. "You're right, and you're one of the reasons I'm still standing." They shared a look, one of quiet understanding, built over years of shared hardship and triumph. Building Monroe Empire hadn't been easy, but here they were, strong, confident, ready to face the future. "You ready?" Lucas asked, holding out a hand. "I've been ready," Alana said, taking his hand. Together they walked out of the office, prepared for whatever came next. Inside an upscale restaurant, Alana sat at a private booth, her eyes quietly fixed on the man sitting across from her, Nathan Cruz. He smiled at her, gently holding her hand across the table. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, raising an eyebrow as he played with her fingers. Alana smiled softly, studying the handsome face of the man who had been her anchor when she was ready to give up. Unlike others, Nathan had never judged her. He had helped her rebuild herself. "I was just thinking," she paused, letting out a sigh. "If I hadn't met you, I don't know where I'd be right now." Nathan laughed lightly and shook his head. "Even without me, Alana, you would have made it. You're determined, smart, and insanely hard-working." He ran his thumb over her hand. "But I'm glad I get to be with you on this journey. I'm so proud of you, love." Her heart warmed. For a long time, she thought she could never love again. She thought Zach had been her entire world. But then Nathan came along, never rushing her, never forcing her, just letting her heal at her own pace, until one day she realized her heart was finally ready again. "When are you going to introduce me to your business partners?" Nathan asked with a teasing grin. Alana laughed. "Why? So you can brag that the CEO of Monroe Empire is your girlfriend?" "Of course," Nathan said with a smirk, but then his gaze turned serious. "But more than that, I want them to see that behind the powerful and brilliant executive is someone who's genuinely loved." Alana couldn't help but smile. After everything she'd been through, she felt like she was finally in the right place. "Thank you, Nathan," she whispered. Nathan just smiled and gently lifted her hand, kissing the back of it. "Anything for you, love." After dinner, Alana and Nathan took a slow walk through the park near the restaurant. They strolled under twinkling string lights strung between the trees, the cool breeze brushing gently against their skin. "Want to walk around for a bit?" Nathan asked, his arm around her shoulders. Alana nodded. "I'd love to make the most of tonight." They walked in silence, taking in the peaceful surroundings. Laughter from nearby families echoed softly, a fountain gurgled in the distance, and the distant notes of a street guitarist filled the air. "You know, Nathan," Alana said, leaning on his shoulder, "sometimes I still can't believe we ended up like this." "What do you mean?" he asked, glancing at her curiously. "I used to think I was hopeless, she answered. After all the pain, the mistakes I made, I never thought someone like you could ever love me. Nathan stopped and turned to face her. He placed both hands on her shoulders. Alana, I'm not here because of your past. I'm here because I love who you are now, and who you're becoming. Tears welled in her eyes. After everything, this was the first time in so long that she felt this kind of peace. She touched his face gently. I love you too, Nathan. He smiled, then leaned down and kissed her softly on the forehead. Ready to head home? He asked. She nodded. Yes, but there's one thing I want. What's that? Nathan asked as he slid his arm around her again. I want you to meet my family. Nathan stopped in his tracks and stared at her, surprised by what she said. Are you sure? I'm sure, she said with conviction. I want you to see you're already a part of my life. Nathan smiled and pulled her into a tight embrace. I love you, Alana. And under the stars that night, Alana knew she had made the right choice. As Nathan drove toward Alana's childhood home, he couldn't hide the nervousness on his face. The sun had long set, and only the streetlights guided their way down the quiet residential road. Are you sure they're ready to meet me? He asked, slowing the car slightly. Alana laughed and reached over to squeeze his hand. You don't have to be nervous. My family is simple, and I know they're going to love you. Nathan smiled, but the tension in his jaw lingered. He knew how much this meant to her. He wanted to make a good impression. When they pulled up in front of the modest house, a sense of warmth radiated from the small, well-kept lawn and the colorful flowers in the front garden. As they got out of the car, the front door opened and an older woman stepped out with a towel in her hand. My baby girl, it's been so long! Her mum, Rosa Monroe, called out joyfully. Alana rushed forward to embrace her mother tightly. Sorry, Mom. You know how crazy work gets. Rosa glanced at the man standing beside her daughter. Nathan stepped forward and introduced himself with a polite nod. Good evening, Mom. I'm Nathan. She smiled warmly and took his hand. Come in, sweetheart. Don't stand out there in the cold. Inside, the Monroe home was humble but cozy. No expensive furniture, but full of cherished memories. On the walls were old photos of Alana as a child, her family gathered together with pride and joy. Her younger brother, Miguel, came out from the living room. Tall and broad-shouldered, he looked to be in his mid-20s. So, you're the guy carrying my sister's heart, huh? Miguel said with a teasing grin. Nathan nodded respectfully. I do everything I can to make her happy. Good answer, Miguel replied, laughing. But don't make her cry, all right? That's the one thing I won't forgive. As they all laughed, Alana's father, Tony Monroe, emerged from the kitchen carrying dishes of food. Don't be shy, kids. Dinner's ready. They all sat around the table and enjoyed a warm, lively meal. Rosa had cooked Alana's favorite dishes, pork stew, braised chicken, and fried tilapia. Nathan noticed how natural and joyful their conversations were, as if worries didn't exist within these four walls. So, how's work going, honey? Tony asked between bites. It's good, Dad. A lot of projects coming in. Busy but fulfilling. Rosa turned to Nathan. What do you do for work, sweetheart? I'm an architect, Mom, he replied. So I get pretty busy too, especially with big projects. An architect? Miguel chimed in. Looks like you hit the jackpot, sis. Alana blushed and gave her brother a playful nudge. He's not just my boyfriend, he's my fiancé. Her family froze for a second before erupting into cheers. Congratulations, sweetheart. We're so proud of you. Rosa beamed. Tony grinned. My little girl is getting married. You kept this a secret from us. Sorry, Dad. We wanted to find the right time. It's okay, honey, Rosa said. Just promise you'll tell us everything now. My princess is tying the knot, huh? Tony added, with a tear in his eye. Just don't hurt my daughter, Nathan. I'd never dream of it, sir, Nathan replied earnestly. I'll protect her with everything I have. Miguel smirked. He better not, or I'll take care of him myself. Though slightly embarrassed by her family's bold affection, Alana's heart was full. She looked at Nathan, who now had a shy smile on his face. He wasn't just accepted, he was welcomed with love. This wasn't an official proposal yet, but Nathan knew, when the time came, he would do it right. Her family saw the way he looked at her, with nothing but respect and devotion. Rosa reached over and held her daughter's hand. We're so proud of you, not because of your success, but because you stayed true to who you are. Alana smiled, her heart swelling. This was the reason she had never let success get to her head. She was raised by love, not money, and now she knew exactly where she belonged. After dinner, Alana and Nathan stepped outside into the small garden in front of her family's home. The cool breeze made the wind chimes tinkle softly as the cicadas began their nightly chorus. They're really happy, Nathan said, gazing at the soft glow of light shining through the windows. Your family, I mean. That's just how they are, Alana replied. We never had a lot, but they chose a life of simplicity and contentment. I admire them for that. Nathan reached for her hand and gently squeezed it. And because of them, I love you even more. Alana smiled and held onto his hand a little tighter. She looked up at him, her heart full. Tonight she knew with certainty she was exactly where she was meant to be. Inside a spacious yet dimly lit boardroom at Whitmore Enterprises, Evelyn and Richard Whitmore sat at opposite ends of a long table. The room was quiet, except for the faint ticking of an old wall clock. I never thought it would come to this, Evelyn said, breaking the silence. Richard looked up from the documents in front of him, sighing as he slowly set the papers down. We've known this was coming for a while, Evelyn. The company's collapse isn't news anymore, but now we've run out of options. All we can do is face the reality. No, Evelyn replied sharply. There's still a way. If we can gain the support of Monroe Empire, we could recover. We have to convince their CEO to help us. Richard exhaled heavily. How? Monroe Empire is known for being ruthless in business. They don't just hand out money to save dying companies. We have no other choice, Evelyn snapped, gripping the armrests of her chair. If we don't act now, we'll lose everything we worked for. I know, Richard said solemnly, and if this really is our last chance, I'm willing to try. But are you sure they'd even consider helping us? Evelyn looked him in the eye, her own gaze steely with determination. We'll find a way. If we have to lower ourselves just to earn their support, we'll do it. Silence fell between them again, both of them contemplating the bitter truth of their situation. After a moment, Richard asked, Who's their CEO now? I heard someone new took over at Monroe. A slow, hard smile crept onto Evelyn's face. Alana Monroe, Richard's brow furrowed. Monroe, that name sounds familiar. His eyes widened as realization hit. My God, Evelyn, isn't she the girl who used to work for us? Evelyn nodded, her face unreadable. Yes, the girl we once dismissed, the one we never gave an ounce of respect to. She now owns the most powerful company in the country. Richard leaned back in shock. The former housekeeper now held the power to crush them effortlessly. What if she says no? He asked quietly. Evelyn's eyes sharpened. Then we're finished. They both fell silent once more, weighed down by the past, the same past that now stood between them and their survival. The girl they had once trampled was now the one holding their fate. A month later, an extravagant corporate event was held at a five-star hotel, attended by some of the biggest names in business. Entrepreneurs, investors, media representatives, and influential executives filled the grand ballroom. But all eyes turned when one woman entered, Alana Monroe. She wore a sleek, elegant black gown, simple yet commanding. Every step she took radiated confidence. Every glance sent her way was filled with admiration and respect. By her side was Nathan, dressed in a sharp black tuxedo. As they walked toward the main hall, Alana could hear whispers trailing behind them. "Is that really her? Wasn't she just a housekeeper before? She's changed so much. Her presence is incredible. She's the CEO of Monroe Empire now, and who's the guy with her? He's gorgeous." Nathan grinned slightly, overhearing the chatter. He leaned toward Alana and murmured, "Seems like I'm getting some attention tonight." Alana rolled her eyes with a quiet laugh. "Must be that tux." As they stepped into the ballroom, an older man approached them with a warm smile. Mr. Alcantara, a renowned investor. "Miss Monroe, what a pleasure to see you again. I must say, you've taken the business world by storm." "Thank you, Mr. Alcantara," Alana replied graciously. "I just did what I had to do." "More than that," he said, turning to Nathan. "You proved them all wrong, and you, young man, I assume you're the reason she's glowing even more?" Nathan smiled and tightened his hold on Alana's hand. Just lucky to be the man standing beside her. As they continued to greet fellow executives, a voice from the crowd stopped Alana in her tracks. "Alana!" She turned. Standing just a few feet away was Zach Whitmore. Their eyes met. Zach looked stunned, while Alana remained composed, a calm confidence in her expression. In that moment she knew she was no longer the woman he had left behind. Their eyes locked for the first time in 5 years. Zach Whitmore, the man who once crushed her, now stood in front of her again. But this time it was he who looked unsure. "Alana," he said again, the name fragile on his tongue, his voice a mixture of hesitation and disbelief. Before she could respond, Nathan gently squeezed her hand, reminding her she wasn't alone. He stepped slightly forward and extended his hand toward Zach. "Nathan Cruz," he said with a firm tone and polite smile. "Alana's fiancé." Zach hesitated but accepted the handshake. The look in his eyes was unmistakable, shock and regret. Alana caught the subtle clench of Zach's jaw, the way his confidence faltered. He had always been in control, until now. "It's been a long time, Zach," she said, her voice cool and calm. "How have you been?" Zach barely managed a response. I'm okay." But before anything else could be said, another familiar voice broke through the tension. "Zach, son." Alana turned. There they were, Evelyn and Richard Whitmore. The very people who had once driven her away now stood before her, anxious, desperate. And Alana knew this night was only going to get more interesting. As Evelyn and Richard Whitmore drew closer, Nathan's grip on Alana's hand subtly tightened. She could feel the shift in the room, the tension, the disbelief on the faces of onlookers who recognized the former power couple now walking toward the woman they once discarded. Evelyn was the first to speak. "Alana, may we have a word?" Alana raised a brow. She hadn't expected this. Not so soon, not here. The same people who had once seen her as beneath them now wanted her attention. "And what exactly do we have to talk about, Mrs. Whitmore?" Her voice remained even, unaffected by the weight the name once carried. Before Evelyn could respond, Richard jumped in. "Alana, we know we don't have the right to approach you after everything that's happened, but we need your help." Nathan didn't smile. There was no trace of friendliness in his tone. "Funny, isn't it? When she had nothing, you cast her out. Now that she's successful, you need her." Evelyn lowered her eyes. The usual haughtiness was gone. "I know we have no excuse, but this is our last chance. The company, it's falling apart. We don't know what else to do." Zach stood quietly behind them, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. He didn't interrupt. Alana's expression didn't change. She tilted her head slightly. "So now you want me to save Whitmore Group, after you all refused to even give me a chance?" No one answered. Alana looked at Nathan, who offered only a steady look of support. He didn't need to speak. She already knew. He trusted her to make whatever decision felt right. She took a breath and turned back toward them. "Tell me, Evelyn, Richard, why should I help you now?" Neither of them had an answer. Without another word, Alana stepped past them. She smiled at other guests, keeping her composure despite the burning stares that followed her exit. She avoided the Whitmores for the rest of the evening, ignoring their glances, their murmured attempts to get her attention. She had no intention of making a decision in a room full of curious strangers. Later that night, as Alana and Nathan stepped into their sleek black luxury car, she stared out the window in silence. Nathan watched her carefully, his eyes soft with concern. "Alana, love," he said gently. "Are you okay?" She let out a slow breath before turning to face him. "I don't know, Nathan. I feel so many things. Anger, resentment. But part of me feels pity too." He took her hand. "That's because you have a good heart." She smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. "Isn't it ridiculous? They tossed me aside like I was nothing. Now they need me, and I can't help feeling responsible." "You're not," Nathan said firmly. "You don't owe them anything." For a while they sat in silence, the weight of the past pressing heavily on Alana's chest. She remembered how no one from the Whitmore family looked back as she walked away all those years ago. Now the power was in her hands. "I suffered for years, Nathan," she whispered. "And now it's up to me whether they feel the same pain." "I'm not going to tell you what to do," Nathan said gently. "But whatever you decide, I'll stand by you." Alana turned to look at him. His presence, his love, always grounded her. "What would you do if you were in my shoes, Nathan?" He gave her a quiet smile. "Depends on who I'm helping, but I know you. You're not the kind of person to abandon someone in need, even if they once hurt you." She went still for a moment, absorbing his words. "I don't know, Nathan, but one thing I do know." She looked out the window again, her voice firm. "They can't control me anymore. I hold the power now." Nathan leaned over and kissed her gently on the cheek. "And that, my love, is what makes you different from them." A week had passed since Alana last saw the Whitmores. She thought that was the end of it, that they would stop reaching out, stop trying. But she was wrong. While reviewing a stack of contracts in her office, her intercom buzzed. "Ma'am, you have a visitor," her assistant said through the speaker. "Who is it?" Alana asked, without looking up from the page she was signing. There was a pause. "Mrs. Evelyn Whitmore." Alana froze for a moment, then leaned back in her chair. "Send her in," she said coldly. Moments later, the door opened and Evelyn walked in, dressed in a pale beige suit with pearls. Though still graceful in appearance, her face showed signs of fatigue and sadness. "Alana," she greeted softly. Alana looked up slowly, her gaze sharp. This was not the same proud woman who once belittled her. "Sit," Alana said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. Evelyn obeyed, taking a slow breath as she settled in. "I know this isn't easy for you," she began, "and I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, only to talk to you, one businesswoman to another." Alana arched a brow. "Businesswoman?" Evelyn nodded. "I want to propose a partnership between Whitmore Group and Monroe Corporation. I know your company is thriving. A deal between us might be the only thing that can save ours." Alana said nothing at first, her heart pounding, not from nervousness, but from the flood of emotions Evelyn's presence stirred. Here she was, the woman who once made her feel worthless, now asking for help. Finally, Alana spoke. "Evelyn," she said the name slowly, deliberately. "I told you the last time we met, back when I came to you asking for help, you didn't even give me the time of day." Evelyn lowered her head. "I know, and I carry that shame every day." Alana stood and walked to the window, arms crossed as she looked out over the skyline. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitmore," she said, her voice cold and clear. "But I'm not interested in any partnership." Evelyn's head snapped up, stunned. "Alana, please." "You want to know why?" Alana cut in. "Because I want you to feel the pain I felt when you turned me away. I want you to know what it's like to stand in front of someone who has the power to help and still be denied." Evelyn's lips trembled. She blinked rapidly, trying to hide the sting of rejection. Alana turned around and looked her dead in the eye. "Now you know what that feels like, and just like you did with me, I'm walking away." Without waiting for a response, Alana sat back at her desk and picked up a pen, her message clear. The meeting was over. Evelyn slowly stood, carrying the weight of defeat on her shoulders. She turned and walked out in silence. When the door shut, Alana exhaled deeply. For the first time, she felt a piece of her dignity had been restored. Hours after turning down Evelyn Whitmore's proposal, Alana remained alone in her office, quietly gazing out the massive floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city. She had imagined this moment for years, seeing the Whitmores fall while she stood at the top. She should have felt triumphant, but instead, her chest felt heavy. She was still lost in thought when the door opened. "Alana?" came Nathan's familiar voice. She turned slightly. He stepped inside, his eyes filled with concern. "She came to see me," she said softly. Nathan already knew who. "Evelyn?" Alana nodded. She was desperate. "What did you do?" "I said no." Nathan walked closer, watching her carefully. "How do you feel?" "I thought I'd feel satisfied," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I don't." She returned her gaze to the skyline. I saw in her eyes what I must have looked like back then. Begging. Hopeless. And I realized I never wanted anyone to see me like that again. Nathan gently took her hand. "You're human, Alana. You've been through hell. You don't need to justify how you feel, and you definitely don't owe them anything." Alana sighed. "But isn't real success about forgiveness? About showing them I've risen above the hate?" Nathan nodded. "That's true. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You don't owe them trust, and you don't have to help them out of guilt or pressure." She was silent for a long time, her thoughts a storm of emotions. She didn't know what the right answer was, but one thing was clear. "If I do decide to help," she said at last, "I want to make sure they never forget. I want to make sure they never get the chance to look down on me again." Nathan gave a small smile. "Sounds like the Alana I know." She took a deep breath and stood. "I think I need to sleep. I'll make a decision tomorrow." Nathan opened his arms and pulled her into a firm embrace. "No matter what you decide," he whispered into her hair, "just know, you never have to face any of this alone." She closed her eyes and leaned into him. "I know. Thank you, Nathan, for always being here." He kissed her forehead. "Always, my love." A week had passed since Alana last saw Evelyn Whitmore. She thought that would be the final chapter, that the Whitmores had finally accepted defeat. But she was wrong. She was in her office, reviewing contracts when the intercom buzzed again. "Ma'am, you have a visitor," her assistant announced. "Who is it?" she asked, not looking up. There was a pause. Zach Whitmore. Alana stilled. She hadn't expected him, not after all these years, not after everything. "Send him in," she said calmly. The door opened and Zach stepped inside. He looked different, older, more tired. There was no arrogance in his expression, only humility and guilt. Alana didn't rise from her chair. "Zach," she said simply. "Alana," he began, voice low. "Please, can we talk?" She offered a cold smile. "Didn't you and your family already say everything you needed to?" Zach took a hesitant step forward. "I know you're angry, especially at me." She stood slowly, facing him squarely. "You came after your mother. Are the Whitmores taking turns now?" Zach flinched slightly at the sting in her words. "I'm not here because they sent me. I'm here because I needed to come, to say what I should have said a long time ago." Alana folded her arms. "Go on." He hesitated. "I didn't fight for you. I let you go without looking back, and I hate myself for that every day." She let out a dry laugh. "You didn't fight for me, Zach. You didn't even check on me when they threw me out, not even once." "I was a coward," he admitted. "I know that now, and I know I can't undo the past, but I came here to apologize." She shook her head, expression cold. "Too late, Zach. I'm not the Alana you left crying on the street anymore." "I know," he said softly. "You're stronger now, more powerful." "Exactly," she replied. "And because of that, there's no reason for us to talk about the past anymore." He was quiet for a long moment before finally whispering, "I still love you." The words hit the air like a stone dropped in still water. Alana blinked slowly. She stared at him, stunned, not by the confession, but by the sheer gall of it. "You love me?" she said, voice laced with disbelief. He nodded once. "Yes." Her eyes narrowed. "Zach, you're too late." She raised her left hand, revealing the gleam of her engagement ring. "I'm engaged." Zach's face fell. "I'm happy now, Zach," she said firmly. "And if you really want to redeem yourself, do it for your own sake, because I've already let you go." She walked past him without another word, just like he had once walked away from her. After leaving the office, Alana didn't think. She just drove, and before she knew it, she was standing in front of Nathan's condo. She didn't know why she went there instinctively. All she knew was that she needed to see him, to hear his voice, to feel his arms around her. When the door opened, there he was, Nathan, dressed in grey sweatpants and a plain white t-shirt. The moment he saw her face, his expression softened. "Love," he said gently, stepping forward and cupping her cheek. "What happened?" Alana didn't answer. She simply wrapped her arms around him tightly. Nathan hugged her back, rubbing her back in slow, comforting strokes. "Hey, I'm here. Tell me what's wrong." After a moment, she pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. "Zach came to my office," she said. Nathan froze for a beat, then his eyes darkened just slightly before softening again with concern. "What did he want?" he asked carefully. "He said he still loves me," she replied in a whisper. Silence fell. Nathan didn't say a word. He studied her face, searching for what she was feeling. "And what did you say?" he asked, his voice barely above a murmur. Alana smiled through the exhaustion in her eyes. "I told him he was too late." Nathan released a deep breath, one he hadn't realized he was holding. She lifted her hand and showed him the ring. "I showed him this." Nathan reached for her hand, kissed the ring, then kissed her fingers. "You have no idea how happy that makes me." Alana let out a breathy laugh and shook her head. I needed to see you. I needed to feel okay again." Nathan pulled her close and kissed her forehead gently. "I'm always here, love. Always." And in that quiet moment, In the warmth of Nathan's embrace, Alana felt the weight begin to lift from her chest. She had finally chosen the right man. After the emotional encounter at the office and the quiet comfort at Nathan's condo, Alana and Nathan made a decision the next day to visit the charity they had long supported together. It was a children's home for orphans and those in need, a project that had become deeply important to Alana. She knew what it felt like to have nothing, and she wanted to give back to those who needed it most. As they stepped out of the car and approached the entrance, a group of children ran toward them. "Miss Alana! Mr. Nathan!" a little girl squealed, wrapping her arms around Alana's waist. Alana knelt and hugged her tightly. "Hey, Yana, how are you, sweetheart?" "I'm good," the girl chirped. "I missed you." Nathan smiled as another group of kids ran up to him. "Mr. Nathan, did you bring the ball you promised?" "Of course I did," he said with a grin, pulling a brand new soccer ball from the trunk. "But there's one condition. You've got to show me your best moves." The kids erupted in cheers and dashed off toward the playground. Alana chuckled, watching Nathan jog after them with the same joyful energy. It was one of the things she loved most about him, his big heart, especially for kids. A gentle hand touched her arm. It was Sister Teresa, the head of the home. "Alana, dear," she greeted warmly. Alana hugged her. "Sister Teresa, how are you?" "I'm better every time you and Nathan visit," she said with a smile. "You're always here when we need you. You two have done more than enough." Alana's smile faltered a bit. Deep inside, she knew this wasn't just about being generous. It was about giving back the hope she once almost lost herself. Later, as she and Sister Teresa sat on a bench watching Nathan play with the kids, the older woman gently squeezed her hand. "You don't have to stay chained to your past, Alana," Sister Teresa said kindly. "Sometimes, peace comes with forgiveness." Alana turned to look at her, the words hitting deeper than she expected. Was she ready? Could she really let go of the bitterness she'd held for so long? She didn't know the answer yet, but she wanted to try. A few days later, news broke across major business outlets. Whitmore Group on the verge of bankruptcy. Once a business empire, now crumbling fast, Alana sat in the living room of her condo, staring at the headline on her laptop. She let out a long sigh. She knew this would hit Evelyn hard, someone who had always taken pride in the Whitmore name and legacy, but what she didn't expect came just minutes later. Her phone rang, a formal request for a business meeting with the Whitmore family. "I never thought the day would come when they'd reach out to me like this," Alana muttered, absently twirling a pen between her fingers. Nathan approached, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "What are you going to do?" Part of her wanted to turn them down immediately, to let them suffer, to feel everything they had once made her feel. But another part of her needed to know. Why now? What did they really want? "I'm going," she said, her voice cool but resolute. "I want to hear exactly how they plan to ask for help from the woman they once threw away." Nathan studied her, clearly torn. Then he nodded. "If that's what you want, I'll be there with you." Alana looked up at him and squeezed his hand gently. Whatever happened in that meeting, she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't the same Alana Monroe they had turned their backs on. Now, she held the power, and what she chose to do next could change everything. The next day, Alana arrived at the upscale restaurant where the Whitmore family had scheduled the meeting. As she stepped through the entrance, she felt every eye turn to her. Years ago, no one would have noticed her. She had been invisible. Now, she was the one holding the future in her hands. In the VIP section at the far end, she spotted Evelyn Whitmore, seated with several board members. Anxiety lined their faces. Zack sat quietly on one side, his gaze heavy with regret and hesitation. Alana approached with confident, measured steps and took her seat across from them. "Thank you for coming, Alana," Evelyn began. "Let's get to the point," Alana said coolly. "What do you want?" There was a brief exchange of glances among the group before one of the executives spoke. "We're asking for your help. We need an investor to keep the company afloat." Alana smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Isn't it funny," she said, "how just a few years ago you treated me like I was nothing, and now I'm the one you need?" Evelyn lowered her gaze. "We know we made mistakes, Alana, but this is our last chance to save the company our family built." Alana sat silently, her jaw tight. The memories came rushing back, the rejection, the humiliation, the pain. "Why me?" she asked, her voice low. "Because you're the only one who has the ability to help," Evelyn said, almost pleading. "And because I know, deep down, you still have a good heart." Alana looked away, her eyes landing on Nathan, who stood off to the side. He didn't speak, but his presence grounded her. His eyes said it all. "You don't have to do this, but if you want to, I'll support you." "I've carried this pain for years," she whispered, "and now I have the power to give it back to you, to let you feel what I once felt." No one responded. Even Zack remained still, his face filled with quiet acceptance. Alana turned back to them, her voice cold but steady. "So tell me, Evelyn, tell me why I should help you." There was no immediate answer, just silence heavy with desperation. Alana leaned back in her seat. The decision was hers now. The restaurant, though filled with ambient noise and distant conversations, seemed to quiet around their table. Alana's calm gaze bore into the faces of the Whitmore family and their board members. Across from her, Evelyn looked both hopeful and broken. Zack sat still, his expression a mixture of shame and silent acceptance. "What's your answer, Alana?" Evelyn asked softly. "I'm not going to lie to you," Alana said, her voice firm. "Your apology doesn't erase what you did. I'm sorry isn't enough to erase years of humiliation." Evelyn lowered her head again, unable to meet her eyes. "You know what hurt the most?" Alana continued. "Not that Zack left, not that you didn't accept me, but that you made me feel like I wasn't even worthy of love, like I was nothing, just because I came from less." Silence. "You cast me aside like trash," she said, voice trembling now, though her composure remained. "And now you sit here, asking me to save you." No one dared to interrupt. Then, from beside her, Nathan reached for her hand under the table and gave it a reassuring squeeze. "I'm not going to pressure you," he whispered, "but remember, you're the one with the power now." Alana turned to him. In his eyes, she saw not judgment, but trust. Then she looked back at Evelyn and the others. Her voice regained its steel. "If I help, I run this," she said. "Every decision goes through me. You don't get to question it, and I'm not here to rebuild your legacy. I'm here to build something of my own, under my terms." Evelyn lifted her eyes slowly. "Does this mean—" Alana nodded once. "I'll help, but not out of debt, not out of pity. I'm doing this for me, because I can." Tears gathered in Evelyn's eyes. "Thank you, Alana. You don't know how much this means to us." Alana didn't reply. Instead, she turned toward Nathan, squeezing his hand once more. She didn't need praise. This wasn't about proving anything. This was about peace. 1 week later, Alana officially took over Whitmore Group. Inside the company's conference hall, she stood at the front of the room, facing a sea of employees, some anxious, some hopeful, many uncertain. Behind her, the company's logo still hung, but beside it now stood the insignia of Monroe Empire. She took a deep breath and began. "I know many of you are afraid of what this change means," she said clearly. "But there's one thing I want to make very clear. We are not giving up. We will rebuild this company, not for the name, but for the people who work here, for all of you." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. For the first time in weeks, some eyes gleamed with cautious hope. From the corner of the room, Zach sat in silence, watching her. He didn't try to approach. He didn't interrupt. He simply listened. And when the meeting ended and the room began to clear, he finally stood and walked toward her. "I don't know how to thank you," he said quietly. Alana looked at him, her expression calm. "I'm not doing this for you, Zach," she replied. "I'm doing this for me, for closure." Zach nodded, his voice heavy. "I know I can't undo what I did, but thank you." She didn't respond right away. Then softly, she said, "This is the end of our story, Zach. And I'm okay with that." As she turned away, Nathan approached, placing a supportive arm around her. "I'm proud of you," he whispered, "not because you helped them, but because you chose to forgive." For the first time in a long while, Alana smiled, not out of triumph or vengeance, but out of peace. "Yes," she said, "and now it's time to write the next chapter." Hand in hand, they walked out of the building together. A few days after the takeover, Alana returned home, not to her high-rise condo or her corporate office, but to the modest family house where she grew up. The sun was setting as she sat on the front porch beside her mother, Rosa, who rocked gently in her old wooden chair. "You've been quiet," Rosa said, watching her daughter out of the corner of her eye. Alana smiled faintly. "Just thinking." "About?" "Everything," Alana murmured. "How far I've come. How much has changed. How I'm still me, even after all this." Rosa reached over and took her daughter's hand. "That's because you never let pain turn you into someone you're not." Alana leaned against her mother's shoulder, like she used to when she was younger. "I faced the people who hurt me, Mum. I looked them in the eye, and I didn't break." "I know," Rosa said softly, "and I'm proud of you. Not just for what you've accomplished, but for how you did it." Just then, the front door opened and Miguel stepped out, holding a tray with 3 glasses of lemonade. "Guess who made your favorite?" he said with a grin. Alana laughed. "Don't tell me you actually squeezed lemons." "I might have," Miguel teased, "but don't get used to it." The 3 of them sat together, sipping lemonade as the sun dipped lower in the sky. It wasn't grand or luxurious, but it was home. And for Alana, that meant everything. Later that night, Nathan joined them for dinner, and the table was filled with stories, laughter, and warmth. There were no business deals, no board meetings, just love, just family. As Alana looked around the table at the people who had never given up on her, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. She was no longer chasing approval, no longer seeking validation. She had survived heartbreak, rejection, and betrayal, and she had risen on her own terms. The sun was rising over the hillside vineyard where Alana and Nathan had chosen to hold their wedding. It was simple and elegant, just like everything Alana had come to value. Rows of white chairs lined a path of rose petals. At the end stood an arch draped with soft ivory fabric and vines of fresh eucalyptus and baby's breath. Alana stood inside the bridal suite, dressed in a satin gown that hugged her curves and flowed behind her like a soft whisper. Her hair was pinned in loose waves, a few tendrils framing her glowing face. As she looked at herself in the mirror, her breath caught, not because of the gown, but because of everything that had led to this moment. There was no more pain in her eyes, no more fear, only strength and joy. A knock at the door. "Come in," she said gently. Her father stepped in, dressed in a charcoal suit, eyes already misty. "Sweetheart," Tony said, his voice trembling, "you look like a dream." She smiled and walked over to hug him. "Thank you, Dad, for always believing in me." He kissed her forehead. "Always will." Outside, guests began to gather. Lucas, her old business partner, gave her a thumbs up from the crowd. Sister Teresa sat with a proud smile, watching from the second row. When the music began, Alana took her father's arm and stepped into the aisle. Every step she took was a goodbye to the girl she used to be, and a hello to the woman she had become. At the end of the aisle stood Nathan, his eyes locked on hers, his breath stolen by the sight of the woman he loved. When she reached him, he took her hands in his. "You ready?" he whispered. "I've never been more ready," she replied. The officiant smiled and began the ceremony. When it was time for vows, Nathan spoke first. "I fell in love with your strength, your courage, and your heart. I promise to stand by you, always, in silence and in storm." Alana blinked back tears. Then it was her turn. "I once thought love was something I had to earn, but you showed me it was something I deserved. I promise to love you with the same kindness, honesty, and devotion you've shown me every day." A few tears escaped down her cheek. Nathan brushed them away. "I do," they said, in perfect unison. Cheers erupted as they sealed the promise with a kiss, long, deep, and full of everything they had fought for. The past had shaped her. The pain had strengthened her. But love had healed her. As they walked back down the aisle, hand in hand, surrounded by the people who mattered most, Alana Monroe knew. This was not the end of her story. It was only the beginning.